Welcome to the Glendale Sustainability Commission. The meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6 and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, and on YouTube at youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime, and at the glendaleca.gov/agendas. And you can call 818-548-4013 for program schedules. DVDs of the proceedings are available for purchase in the Glendale City Clerk's office. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. If you have any questions about matters on the agenda or requests for assistance, please contact the Management Services Department at 818-548-4844 during regular business hours. And today we have Commissioner Botrasov participating from an off-site location, the conference room located at 5215 West Del Rio Street in Chandler, Arizona. And may we have the roll call, please?
Roll call, Commissioner Cartoonian, Commissioner Kanjian.
Present.
Commissioner Bartrosov.
Present.
Vice Chair Pinkerton. Chair Werner.
Present.
Ex officio Gang. Ex officio Prado.
Present.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is 1A, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Item 1B, the agenda for the July 7th, 2022 meeting of the Sustainability Commission was posted on June 30th, 2022 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Item 2 is approval of minutes. 2A is approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held June 2nd, 2022.
Thank you. So for the approval of the minutes, did anyone have any comments or corrections to the minutes? Okay, can we have a roll call then?
First, we need a motion.
I move to approve the minutes of June 2nd, 2022.
Second. Roll call.
Chair Werner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pinkerton, Commissioner Bartrosov,
Yes.
Commissioner Kanjian,
Yes.
Commissioner Cartoonian. Next item is agenda item 3, board member and staff comments.
Okay, Mr. Jones, would you like to start us off with the comments?
Thank you, Chairperson Werner. We just have a few comments today. In our August meeting, we'd like to consider putting together the Sustainability Commission work plan, if that is something the commissioners would like us to see agendize on that August meeting. Also, at the August meeting, we will be swearing in and setting the new ex officios. And also, we may want to bring the land acknowledgement back to the commission. And I think that's all staff comments from me. Elizabeth?
Do we have an update on, I believe City Council reviewed the artificial turf agenda item that had previously come before us. Do you know what happened with that?
So City Council approved the development of 2 artificial turf fields at the sports complex, Field 3, and at the other field, which just escapes my mind right now. And then one field would not be approved of artificial turf. So they voted unanimously to vote those 2 fields artificial turf.
Thank you. Okay, do any of the commissioners have any comments that they would like to make?
I'd like to say something if I have the floor.
Yes.
Thank you. So I've been in touch with David about an issue that I had brought up at a previous commission meeting. One of the things that I would like our commission to make a recommendation on is a prohibition on drive-throughs and future gas stations for the city of Glendale. So as the other commissioners may know, the city council recently passed a prohibition on drive-throughs in the downtown specific plan area. And I had brought up an interest for our commission to consider a recommendation asking that policy be extended to be a citywide policy. So I know that our August agenda is going to be quite busy, and I understand staff needs time to bring this item back for our consideration. So if it's okay, I'd like to get a second from another commissioner for this to be agendized for the September Sustainability Commission meeting. And I would like to specifically ask that it be an action item so that in the month of September, we are actually making a recommendation and not just hearing a report as an information item only. So if I can get a second for that request to happen in September, that'd be great.
I'll second for it to be agendized.
Okay, we have a second, so we'll look forward to having that action item in the future. Will that be all, or did you have any other comments?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kanjian, did you have any? No, okay. Would our ex officio member have any comments? Okay. All right, so next agenda item, please.
Next agenda item is agenda item 4, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the Sustainability Commission. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Sustainability Commission members may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or discussion. The matter may be referred to staff for investigation and report. At this moment, we have one caller on the line that can be present, Catherine Yurka.
Okay.
Hello, Catherine.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening.
You will have 5 minutes. Let me get your presentation up.
Thank you. If you could let me know when it's up, I'll go ahead and start.
Your presentation's up. You have 5 minutes.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Yurka, and I'm calling tonight as a board member of the Verdugo Woodlands Homeowners Association. HOA has recently formed a tree committee, and its mission is to maintain and protect the existing woodlands urban forest and also to plan for the planting of new trees. And I'm reaching out to the Sustainability Commission because I very much respect the work that you've been doing, and your commission appears to have a rather broad mandate to make recommendations about policy, unlike most of the other boards and commissions I'm familiar with. I was thrilled to learn about the money that's been set aside for planting trees, primarily in South Glendale, and I'm seeking your help to promote a thriving urban forest throughout the city. In the woodlands, like elsewhere in Glendale, our urban forest has been decimated in the last decade. This is in part due to the effects of drought, but also to carelessness and often disregard for city laws around city street trees and protected indigenous trees. Construction projects are an enormous problem for trees, and I just wanted to draw your attention to a couple of issues, and these are just exemplary photos. I could really show you dozens. So this is the construction. Oh, I'm sorry, this I think is the second slide. If you could go, yeah, this is the first slide. Thank you. It's hard to see on the screen. So you've got an example of a healthy and one of the most magnificent oak trees in the woodlands on the right. You see what happened as a result of construction. These people had been given instructions about protecting the tree like a year ago. And then suddenly there was another tent with lots of equipment under the tree. It took 6 weeks to resolve this issue, and it was only through the pressure of a council member. And what happened was a stop work order was issued, and the problem was resolved in 2 days. If you can go to the next slide, this was another construction project. Without a permit, the property owners created a much larger driveway. They have impacted the protected oak, which is also a city tree. It has much less space. You can see the condition that the tree is in. The third slide. This was a city street tree that was damaged fatally during work for a property to the sewer. The property owner had been heard from a neighbor who lives behind saying that he wanted to get rid of this tree, and the property owner succeeded. And then finally, an example from my street, Niadrera. On the left, you have what was once a lush landscape. In the center, you can see there were originally 2 protected sycamores, a protected oak tree. These are all gone. They were not removed until they were dead, but they were alive when the people bought this property. The photograph on the right, these were the 2 oak trees that the owner was required to plant when they removed a dying oak tree. You can see barely that both of these oak trees are dead, and also they should not be planted 5 feet apart. Okay, so if you could go to the last slide, please. So Public Works has terrific staff who work in urban forestry, Captain Williams and Lauren Click, but they're quite hampered in their efforts to resolve issues with property owners. They're the first people to say that it can take a very, very long time. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what slide you're on. If you could go to the last slide. They say that it can often take a very long time to remedy these problems. Now, it's not like a property owner illegally replaces their windows. That's, can be a drag, but it's not like the house is going to die. I'm sorry, I need the last slide. There's words on it. Do you not have that?
Yeah, we can see that. I think there's just a lag.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would urge you to agendize taking steps to help the urban forest. These include training building inspectors to understand tree care and preservation. At present, they do not. They have no idea what to look for when they go to a building site. Facilitate stop work orders when protected trees are harmed due to construction impacts. Empower Public Works to rectify ongoing
Excuse me,
problems.
Catherine, your 5 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you. You can read what the rest of this says, and you may have other ideas. I look forward to your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. This is something I'd like to see added to the agenda because clearly we've had some funding for replacing dead trees, but I don't think we're doing enough to prevent the trees from dying in the first place or being cut down. So is there anyone that would be willing to second that?
I'd be happy to.
Okay. And as an action item to look at ways to help trees.
So I just want to remind the commission that the arborist has come to the commission and presented the work that they're doing. So what we will do with this is we'll take those concerns we'll reach back out to him, have a discussion with them, get some information from them, but a report for this would not be agendized until at least October, because staff need the time to.
And it could include an update on how they're doing with the reforestation of the tree canopy, since, you know, the funding has been in place for a while. And
the item's already gone to City Council too, and they've made a decision. So. Okay.
I do have a speaker card, but that's for a specific agenda item later.
Okay, if there aren't any more speakers, next item is agenda item 5. Action 5A is selection of student ex officio non-voting members. A motion approving the selection and appointment of student ex officio non-voting members to the Sustainability Commission.
Okay, I believe we have a presentation from from at least one of the members who served on that committee.
But I'll do the presentation, then I'll hand over to Andrea, so after the presentation. So yeah, this is always Commissioners, Chairperson Werner and Sustainability Commissioners. This is always an exciting time of year for us on the Sustainability Commission, where we sadly have to say goodbye to our current ex officios, but we're also excited to appoint our new ex officios. So there is a motion in front of the Commission for the selection and appointment of the student ex officio non-voting members for the Sustainability Commission to serve the 2022-2023 term of the Sustainability Commission. Just as a bit of background for our audience, on November 3rd, 2020, the City Council adopted Ordinance 5954, amending Title II of the Glendale Municipal Code, adding a chapter establishing the Sustainability Commission. And when that commission was established, there was we wanted to make sure that we had student ex officios on that commission, so we can hear the voice and the thoughts of the students as the Sustainability Commission deliberates and makes decisions going forward. The two ex officios are non-voting members of the commission, but they are integral and really important to discussion that the commission has. So just to review the selection process, the idea is to have a transparent, inclusive, and fair and equitable selection process. I'm happy to report we had 16 applications received this year. Last year we had 9, and I think that is due to the commissioners very much being involved in getting the word out to the schools and to the community regarding the openings. And also with Elizabeth on board, staff are able to use social media and other aspects to get the word out to our community. This year, the ad hoc selection committee consisted of Vice Person Pinkerton and ex officio Prado. We thought it was very important to have one of the ex officios as part of that selection process so they can talk to the students and everything, so they can get a real understanding of what is involved. Again, there's an application process that all applicants must meet the full criteria of the application process. Of the 16 applicants received, one applicant, the application was not complete, so they did not move to the interview stage. 14 candidates were interviewed. Another candidate was not interviewed because their application arrived after the deadline, so we couldn't accept that. And then finally, the ad hoc committee will recommend to the Sustainability Commission this afternoon the 2 candidates that they feel will fulfill the role for the commission. If the recommendations are not accepted, there are some alternatives available to the commission. But at this point, I'd like to hand over to Andrea, ex officio Andrea, to talk about the selection process and talk about the candidates that they have selected and make that recommendation to the commission.
Yeah, thank you. So this process was very familiar to me, and it was great to see that there were, a few more candidates that applied this year, and everything partly was that because of the outreach that we did as commissioners, to individual schools or organizations around the city. And I'd like to thank all the candidates that did apply and send in all their information to us. I'm sure Jennifer, if she's watching, can say the same. But all the candidates that we met they were all, they had great qualifications. All of their application materials were completed, and it was a very hard choice. And so with that, the candidates that we did try to move forward with are two individuals that stood out to both Jennifer and I. We thought that the way that they handled the interview questions were, in a good manner. So they handled it in a way that they were able to understand the approach that they wanted to take sustainability and be a part of the commission. And overall, their extracurricular activities or any projects that they worked on in school as well. So let's see. I'm sorry, David. I don't know their last names, but I can tell you their first. We recommend for first name. His first name is Mike. You know his last name? Borisov?
That is Mike, yes, Borisov, thank you.
Thank you. And then the second individual, her name is Yuzana Hudo. Yes. And so those are the two candidates that we thought were good to recommend for the commission.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for all the work that you did. I served on that committee last year, and I know it's tough to make a decision when you get a lot of qualified candidates. And having read the applications, I'm sure that was a very tough decision. There were so many qualified people. Could I have a motion then to vote? Can we vote on both of them at once, or is it one at a time? Oh, okay. So we can vote on both of the ex officio candidates that were recommended by the selection committee.
I'm happy to make the motion, and then I have a comment when we're ready to discuss.
Okay. Yeah. So you've just made the motion to approve them or to vote on them, and then we need a second so we can discuss it. And
I will second their approval.
okay, and the discussion. Would you like to start off, please, Alec?
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank Jennifer and Andrea for going through this process. I'm also very excited that so many people expressed an interest in joining us on the Sustainability Commission. So I want to thank everybody that applied to be on the commission. I am really looking forward to having our new commissioners. I'm hoping that through this process, we've learned how ex officios can be more engaged through our process and contribute in a meaningful way to the work that we're doing in the city. I also am very interested in pursuing additional opportunities for every single individual that has applied to be a commissioner that we are not selecting here tonight. I think there's room for everybody in our movement and our collective objective to become a more sustainable city. So I'd like to figure out a way, perhaps not tonight, perhaps something staff can look into or we can as a commission, to keep this energy going with all of these individuals, make sure that we engage with them as a city and utilize their collective knowledge, their interests, their excitement about doing things that are sustainability oriented as they pursue their careers, their education, et cetera. I want to make sure we don't lose that opportunity with all these folks that have expressed an interest. So thank you to the subcommittee. Thank you for everybody that's applied, and very excited to have the new ex officios join us this year.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from commissioners?
We have a call on this item.
Okay.
Hi, Monica Campagna.
Thank you very much. Good evening, commissioners, and to all the students who applied.
You have 2 minutes, Monica.
Thank you. I just wanted to say to all the students that applied this year, I read every application, and I want you all to know how impressed I am and how really inspired I am by you. So thank you. And if you didn't get elected this year and you want to be involved, I'm a member of the Glendale Environmental Coalition, and I also strive to work within the Glendale Unified School District on sustainability issues. I hope you'll find a way to reach out to me. And I congratulate you and I thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Monica. There aren't any more callers at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, Commissioner members, we had a motion, we had a second. If we could take a roll call for the vote, please, for the two candidates.
Yes, if there's no other discussion, then I call for roll call.
Roll call, Chair Werner,
Yes?
Vice Chair Pinkerton, Commissioner Bartrosuf,
Yes.
Commissioner Kanjian,
Yes.
and Commissioner Cartoonian. It has passed.
Okay, and thank you, and we look forward to welcoming the new ex officios.
The next item on the agenda is item 6, reports and information. 6A is organics recycling and food recovery.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Werner and Commissioners. I believe Commissioner Pinkerton asked for this item to be brought back to have an update on the city's rollout of SB 1383 and specifically the implementation of the organics recycling program and the food recovery. We have with us here today Mr. Dan Hargrove, Assistant Director of Public Works, and Mr. Etienne Ozerak, Integrated Waste Superintendent, who will provide us a presentation for you today and answer any questions that you may have on the rollout of this program.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairperson Werner, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to providing you with an update. And there are 3 areas in SB 1383 that I want to talk about this evening. One is the implementation of the residential collection program for organic waste. The other one is the coordination of commercial organics requirements. And finally, the edible food recovery efforts that we've covered to date so far. This timeline summarizes the ground that we've covered, and if you're aware of the SB 1383 timeline, it began with the adoption of the final regulations and also CalRecycle packaged model ordinance language, and that occurred in late 2020, early 2021. And so that gave us a little time to package our ordinance, which was put in place in May 2021. But after May 2021, we entered into a period that had some very important milestones before the January timeframe, which included getting a contractor to assist us with outreach services, as well as implementation of the commercial franchise program, which went into effect December 1st. And after that, those pieces were in place, then we moved into January 2022, where we entered into a contract with the Recreate Collaborative on food recovery for the food recovery program. Moving to April 1st, that was the deadline that we set to start adding food waste to the green carts, both residential as well as making the requirement for the commercial generators as well. And that implementation stage for the commercial started in April and just ended in July. Additionally, we're also working on implementing the cart rollout. These are, SB 1383 has very specific color requirements on carts, as well as labeling requirements. And we just finished covering the Monday routes, because we're doing this in 3 phases. So Monday's routes were completed recently. And as well as the carts being delivered, we also added the kitchen pails. And finally, the edible food recovery efforts, which I will talk about later. So the timeline here ends with the 75% goal by 2025 of organic material diversion. So back to residential organics. As we started this program, and it went into effect on April 1st, and the material is diverted through City Terrace Recycling, which is able to process the material. And as you are probably aware, we had the bagged requirement that was put in place. And that's because the material, as it's delivered to the transfer station, has to be sorted with the green waste going into one area for processing and the food waste being delivered to another processor. So that was why the bagging requirement went into effect. This infrastructure throughout the Los Angeles Basin is very much in transition, but those were the options we had, recognizing that we have to use facilities that are within a reasonable distance from our collection points. The outreach effort that supported this included postcards mailed to all residents, revised downloadable flyers, Google ads, and we have put out we received 454,000 impressions and 7,306 clicks, 16 social media posts, as well as a streamable webinar, which is still on our website. And from those efforts, the traffic on our website increased from 1,600 views in April to 8,500 views in May. As I mentioned, we were involved in the cart deployment, and the Monday routes are completed, and now we're entering into phase 2, which will see the Tuesday and Wednesday hopefully accomplished this fiscal year, and Thursday and Friday hopefully accomplished in the following fiscal year. All of the carts that are being delivered also are accompanied by a kitchen pail. And because of the delay in the other phases of delivering the carts, we are making those pails available for pickup at the integrated waste yard. And so far we have had 60 pails collected from the yard. We will move into the next phase with the deployment of starting to do the required route reviews, which are for assessing the level of contamination into the carts. Next, I want to touch a little bit on the commercial organics program. As you know, there are 4 haulers that are involved in this, so it's really quite a substantial effort. So as well as our staff, you have the staff and the resources of 4 haulers that have been gathered to move the needle on this effort. So as of July 1st, all customers are subscribed to, or will be subscribed to, organic services. And in the period when we were planning this effort, we had weekly meetings, which are now bi-weekly, but we met every single week to be able to make the transition as smooth as possible. And the first period was the December-March period where we transitioned from the city services to the franchise haulers. And then between April and July, we went through the 3-stream service requirement. The outreach was very substantial. It included from both city staff as well as the franchisees, direct mail to their customers, downloadable materials, providing training to our customer support staff as well as their customer support staff, providing a webinar, which is also on our website, and also developing a system for reviewing exemptions. There are two areas where exemptions can be granted. One is if they generate very little organics, which is less than 2 cubic yards a week. And the other one is whether they have space constraints. And by space constraints, I also mean constraints that would affect the hauler's ability to provide service in a safe manner. So, those exemptions are managed by the city staff with field verification done by the haulers. To date, we have granted 295 exemptions, and this is out of a commercial population of 2,700 multifamily units and 1,400 businesses that are within our data set. Lastly, I want to mention that the customer list that we have were made comprehensive at the beginning of this year, and we are now currently getting updated compliance data so that we can see what progress has been made since January to June 30th in terms of commercial recycling compliance. Finally, I want to address edible food recovery. This is an effort that is supported financially by the franchise haulers. And this contract we entered into with a group called the Recreate Collaborative, and it involves principals from the Carrot app, as well as principals from Food Cycle LA, which gave us an advantage of working with people that are already very networked and knowledgeable about the resources that are available. Between the period of January to March, we identified all Tier 1 generators, Tier 1s and Tier 2 generators, identifying 28 of the first and 85 of this second class. And so that's a total of 113 generators. We also identified 8 food recovery organizations that are within the city of Glendale. Identifying those generators was the first phase, and the other part was to provide the county with an estimate of the recoverable edible food capacity that we had available to us. And through that research, we found that there was an estimate of 1,350 tons of recoverable food. We just completed the visit of all 28 Tier 1s as of the end of June. And now we're going, in the next fiscal year, which just started, we are now going to be visiting the 85 Tier 2 generators. And at this point in time, my experience with being part of those site visits, some of the grocery stores are very much ahead of the curve and very much have strong programs already in place, and some are not aware of the requirements at all. So it's very much of a hand-holding period that we're entering into. And our city staff is shadowing the group visits with our contractor in order to become more familiar with the program. Chair Werner, commissioners, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to open it up for questions.
Well, thank you. So actually, I was the one who wanted to bring this to I bet Commissioner Pinkerton agreed as well. But the part about putting your organics in a plastic bag, so once you get a new cart, do you not have to do that anymore? Is that?
No, it's because regardless of whether you have an old cart or a new cart, the only facility that we can use requires the bagging. Yeah.
To me, just the idea of people having to go to the store and buy plastic bags, clear plastic bags, because the ones you get at the grocery store are usually not clear because they're recycled, and then putting your rotting waste in it, and then someone else's job, which I wouldn't want, but they get to open these gross bags and then dump make sure it's really compostable, and then they dump it into something else and throw away the bags.
Those bags aren't manually opened up. They usually have machines that shred and separate the material somehow.
Okay, well, I'm glad a machine is doing it, not some unfortunate soul. So, okay, that's another thing I've been wondering about. So is that the plan long-term, or is that just what we're doing because that's
what
the
we're
infrastructure
presently,
we're stuck with right now?
that's what we're presently doing for the foreseeable future until we have a more mature infrastructure and more options for managing that material.
Okay, and then I know there was a lot of questions from some of the neighborhood organizations I'm involved with, and so about managing the waste before it goes into the bin, and so you've clarified that everyone will get some kind of a kitchen pail. Is this something that a dog can't get into, for example, and turn over, and or do they kind of latch or something, or?
They don't typically. People can either keep them under the counter or on their counters, but I wouldn't keep it on the floor.
Okay. Also, you mentioned that there were exemptions for some people, like the ones who generate, what was it, below 2 cubic yards?
Yes.
So if I compost my own waste, I would possibly qualify for this?
I want to clarify, this is only for commercial generators. The system of granting exemptions is only for the commercial generators. It doesn't work with residential at all.
Oh, okay, all right.
Etienne, sorry, Commissioner, can you correct me so that comes from Cal Recycle, that we're following their regulations?
Yes,
correct.
And the exemption system, the system of reviewing and granting exemptions was really only crafted for the business community.
But is that something that could be considered, so that we can encourage people to do their own composting?
They can. They wouldn't need to be exempt. It's not. The system that we have to process these is quite labor intensive because it requires field verification. I wouldn't want to apply that to the residential. People can do what they want with their stream, that we're not involved in managing or directing people's personal organics. So if they want to do backyard composting, they can. It's just up to them.
Well, another issue that comes up a lot with this is the cost, that our bills will go up. I know when they rolled this out to multifamily residences, there was an enormous increase, like 10 times what the bills were before. Can you give us an idea of what the increase will be for the average resident?
I can't speak to that. The rates were last set in 2010 and haven't been adjusted since. The commercial rates were recently set with the franchise program, and right now the management is is currently working on a rate study to evaluate what the impact is.
Yeah, so I was thinking in terms of if residents were doing their own composting, that maybe they could also save money on their bill. If that turned out to be a hardship of some sort, that might be worth exploring. I'm just concerned about people who are, the whole triple bottom line, people, planet, profit, that we're not leaving low-income people in the, holding the bag literally on this program. I realize it's mandated by the state, but I'm just very concerned about the cost for people who aren't, who are barely scraping by as it is.
Absolutely.
Okay, do any of the other commissioners have any comments or questions?
I had a couple of questions, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Nice to meet you. Rondi touched on this. I know a lot of people in the community are confused and annoyed about the bag requirement. Can you let the public know why it has to be clear versus not clear? I think Rondi alluded to this. A lot of the compostable options that are available to consumers are not necessarily clear and they're colored. So can you clarify why it has to be a clear bag versus any type of bag?
The problem with bags that are not translucent is you can't tell what's in them. And so from the processor's point of view, it's better that they are able to see the contents, but it's very hard to control in terms of the bags that people will use.
Well, you mentioned a machine does them, so
Yes.
I thought they had to be clear because a person was looking at them, but, we have some clarification.
Good evening, Chair Warner, members of the Commission. Just to add to what Etienne is saying, I think we just need to clarify the clear bags and the need for them. This is because of the regional infrastructure. This isn't a Glendale set mandate. It's not our decision. This was something because of the infrastructure in the area and the processors we're using need to be able to source separate from green waste materials and contaminated materials at the processing facility. So they, as Etienne alluded to, they manually need to look into the contents of the bag, move it to the food waste side, and cut the bags open to release the food. So that's the purpose of the clear bag. So it's visible for the processors. So if it's full of tin cans, they'll in a not clear bag, they wouldn't be able to distinguish that, and it would contaminate the food waste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I understand that this is not imposed by the city of Glendale. We're constrained with the facility that we're partnered on this endeavor with. I guess I would like to. My hope is that the city of Glendale and our staff are advocating to this facility operator that this is a concern for our community, and we're hoping for ways to make this less plastic, less of a need for plastic within this process. So, hopefully through negotiations, maybe some kind of future negotiation to kind of eliminate or minimize our use of plastic would be really beneficial. So I'll just leave it at that, and we'll assume that staff is doing that on our behalf. And then the other thing the question that I had, I noticed a newsletter or some correspondence about the kitchen pails. Based on what I was reading, I'm not sure if it was vague or it wasn't clear to me. Are these kitchen pails available to multifamily units, or is this exclusive to the single-family households?
They are available to any resident who would like one. That includes multifamily tenants. They just have to call us and come and pick up a pail and just sign for it. That way we can keep track of the number of pails given out.
Okay, but I thought that you had mentioned that as the green bins are being rolled out, that they are being accompanied by a kitchen pail?
That's correct.
Okay.
But that only applies to the Monday routes that have gotten the new carts. There are the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday have not and will not for a little while, and so we wanted to make those pails available to those residents as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious how this works implementation-wise. I live in a multifamily building that has already received its green bin, but I don't imagine, are you sending the appropriate amount of kitchen pails for that building? How does that work if multiple units are being serviced by one green bin?
No, the kitchen pails are only being distributed to the city customers. We're not involved in distributing them to the commercial haulers, the ones that are serviced by the commercial haulers. That being said, if a tenant that's serviced by a commercial hauler, by one of the 4 franchise haulers, if they want a pail, they can simply contact us, send us an email, and come and pick up during office hours.
Yeah, I guess I'm understanding the logic, but in reality, it is a bit of equity disparity when you're asking somebody who lives in a multifamily to have to go physically to a location and pick up a pail, when in comparison, somebody who lives in a single family house is just getting one delivered to their home. So, and we, on top of that, we have to ask for it. It's not just given to us like it is to our single family neighbors. So I would ask that we look into that. I want to make sure that as we pursue our climate action plan, that these kind of, I'm going to call them inequities or ways in which we treat the multifamily folks separate from the single family folks, that we eradicate that. And this is just a micro example of the ways in which it is burdensome, it is additional work for somebody who lives in a multifamily versus somebody who lives in single family to participate in something that the city is endeavoring on as it relates to sustainability. So I'd like that for staff to be mindful of that, and that hopefully as a commission we'll keep an eye out for that as part of our climate action plan.
Do we have any figures on how many tenants have requested these pails?
No, right now, we have only 60 requests that have come to our office.
Okay. Well, 60% of Glendale lives in a multifamily housing, and of those, over half speak a language other than English at home, live, below the median income, things like that. So it's, to Alex's point, it could be a hardship for some of them to obtain these, and just something that winds up never happening. So it would be nice if we could track what that is, and so we can look at ways to increase that number so it's more convenient. And like what you were saying earlier, you wouldn't put that container on your floor. I don't think the average kitchen size of these multifamily units, they've got that kind of extra counter space lying around. I know, and I live in a single family home, but so I think most of those are going to wind up over by the trash bins on the floor. So I hope they're designed for that, because I'm not putting one on my counter. But anyway, so does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I'm sorry, I had one more.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, this just came to mind. It was brought to my attention that the City of LA partnership that they have, or the facility that they use, does not require the waste to be put into a bag. So I'd like to tease that out a little bit further. If staff is aware of that facility and is aware of the City of LA's the City of LA and the way that they're doing things. If somebody has a comment about that. And then the last thing that I'll mention or I'll ask is, I'm curious about the recycled content of all of these bins. I know the city is replenishing or replacing a lot of the trash bins, the recycle bins. We now have these kitchen pails. It looks like a lot of plastic to me, and it's in the thousands, and we're talking about tons and tons of plastic. Can somebody on staff touch base on whether any of this plastic is post-consumer recycled, or if there's not or, but is there a recycling component as these items reach the end of their lifespan?
Yes, Chair Werner, Commissioners, Commissioner Bartosoff. Yeah, the cart CIP for our residential cart replacement, all the materials generated from the carts that are being retrieved are being recycled. So that's a very large project, and of course, most containers these days are made of plastic. That's the standard. But in the case of our CIP program, that is part of the conditions, is that the stuff that they're retrieving, the old carts, are recycled, as are our regular service carts.
Yeah, but and that's great, but are the new ones that we're getting, are they made with recycled plastic, or can they be made with recycled plastic?
Yes, they are.
So the new ones that we're getting do have a share of recycled plastic in them?
That's correct. That was in the specifications.
Okay, thank you. And then if somebody had a comment or note about how the city of LA is able to get away with not having to bag their green waste, if somebody has a comment about that, that'd be great.
We can only speak to our efforts. I mean, Los Angeles is a large city. The region and the processors that we are approved for using, that's the standard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? I think, okay, go ahead.
So my question for you, you said that this program was being implemented throughout June, is that correct?
I'm sorry,
It was implemented in the month of June?
the cart rollout?
Yes.
Yeah, it was, the first phase was completed just within the last week or two.
Which region of Glendale specifically, do you know?
Well, it's what we call the Monday routes, which go all the way up to La Crescenta.
Yeah, Monday routes is that's what you,
Yeah.
that's a tough thing to describe geographically. It's essentially the La Crescenta area, Montrose, Spar Heights, Montecito Park.
Okay. Are there any efforts to expand that throughout South Glendale?
The way we're rolling out the cart, it's a multi-year massive project. These are like 90,000 carts. Mm-hmm. So we're doing it in phases, and we're following our normal collection routes. So our Monday route, that's why we keep referring to it. Maybe that's we should be a little bit more clear on that. So our Monday route is the first phase. Then we'll go to our Tuesday route, Wednesday route, Thursday route, and Friday route. So through that process, we'll Tuesday route, which would be the next one, is West Glendale, Rancho area towards Burbank.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the rates would go up August 1st, was it?
No, what I said was the commercial rates were, the new rates were implemented July the 1st. Residential rates have not been adjusted because the staff are in the middle of a rate study.
Oh, okay. Okay. And will the people who haven't been converted to that still be charged once, since it sounds like there's going to be at least a year. My neighborhood's on the Thursday plan, so, does that mean I'm getting a discount until I get the bin, or am I going to be charged for that rate before I receive the service?
No, everyone is receiving the service now, regardless of whether they have a new cart or an old cart. So the rate is not dependent on having a new cart, it's just dependent on the service. So the service has been expanded to include organics for all residents, so that's the new service. The cart deployment is just switching carts, so it's not really related to the rates being charged.
Okay, so it's just putting the right color of cart there because the other ones didn't comply.
Yes, some of our carts have been out there for 20 years.
Okay, great, thank you. I think you've clarified a lot of the questions I was getting from people and
my pleasure.
Wasn't sure of. So we appreciate the time that you're taking to give us an update on this.
We do have a comment card from the floor, Chair.
And yes, we do have a speaker, David Eisenberg. Would you like to come up, please? You have 3 minutes.
I hope I can get through everything in 3 minutes. Good evening, commissioners and staff. I'm here, my name is David Eisenberg. I've been a homeowner since 1985. I live in a multifamily unit. Just to be clear, I am not speaking for any organization today, although we might eventually handle these. The presentation was very exciting and it looked very workable. I want to give a little reality check, and I'd like you at the end of my talk to make an action item to bring this back and make specific recommendations on, it's an equity issue. The whole program is, all the presentations, most of the stuff on the way. If you live in a single family home and you're a homeowner, you know what a green bin is, you use it already, it's very clear. Those of us in a condo, we don't know this stuff. There's 70% is the figure I have. Chairman Werner said 60. It's in that range. Most people in Glendale live in multifamily homes. There's a lack of access to this program. It's due to program management, economic status, and language. The program management, the only reason our condo board knows about this program is because I've been telling them it's coming since November. They've gotten nothing from the hauler. This is a franchise. You're assuming that these franchise haulers are doing what you think they're doing. They're not. They took the bin. They dumped it. We got a bin. They dumped it on the street. I found it lying on its side. I called the management company. Do you know anything about this bin? No, they don't know anything about it. We don't know where to put it. We don't know what day it's being picked up. The picture you have on page 4 has a nice pretty graphic on the top for what grows in that bin. No graphic on the bin. We don't know. The homeowners don't know. Language, I'd say half of the people in our building, we have 50 units, half of them speak other languages. There's Armenian, Russian, Spanish. I'm going to I'll hand all of them. And I'd like these back because I'm going to bring this to council. This is the information they provide. They didn't send this to our management company. The only reason I have this is I went to the Riverwalk Park event and talked to the Athens people, and they brought me over the posters. They didn't send this to the apartment buildings. And if you look at it, it's in English and Spanish. And to me, and I'm pretty knowledgeable, this is incomprehensible for what I'm supposed to put in. And the color of the bin doesn't match the bin they gave us. It matches the bin on slide 4. And the countertop bins, that sounds like a great program.
Thank you, David. Your 3 minutes are up.
Yeah, but just so you know, you have to go to the web. It took me 15 minutes to find the website, and you just can't go and pick it up. And I still don't know where to go to pick it up, but.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'd be happy to talk to staff if you would like to share that with me. Lots of other equity.
Chair, we have a caller on the line, Kate Unger.
Okay. Yes.
Hello, Kate. Are you? Hello? Hello, Kate? Hello, Kate?
Yes, hello, I'm here, but I'm calling on item 7A.
Oh, sorry, wrong.
You're a little early, Kate.
Sorry.
We'll get back to you.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'm holding on. I didn't expect to be called yet.
Okay. No worries. Yep. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Eisenberg. You raised a lot of the same issues that I was concerned about as well, as far as equity and so on, and outreach to people. And I think the cost part of it's what's the most concerning to me, I think, and to most residents in Glendale. Do we have any other items that anyone wanted to bring up? Questions? Anything? Okay. So, thank you very much. And can we go on to the next agenda item then?
The next agenda item is 6B, Verdugo Wash Visioning Update.
Chairperson Werner, Sustainability Commissioners, Bradley Calvert, Assistant Director of Community Development, is going to provide the Sustainability Commission with the update on the latest and greatest regarding the Verdugo Wash Project.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Good evening, Chair and Commission members. As highlighted, we are here to give an update on our Verdugo Wash Visioning Study. What we're going to go through today is, actually it's already on that slide, perfect. We want to discuss what the project goals and the description of this project is. I'm going to give a couple examples, some precedents of, I guess you could call inspiration for the project that is kind of helping to guide the vision in many ways and serve as reference points for us. We're going to go through some renderings and graphics in terms of design concepts of where this project is as of today, discuss some of the public input, and then next steps. What I'd like to do is start off with, if you were to put this project on a calendar year kind of timeline, from kind of inception to completion, we're on January 1st or 2nd. So the graphics that you're going to see are going to be relatively refined, but they are by no means the final design. They do not incorporate all of the specific elements that would go into this project. This is a very large project. It's a very complex project. It covers everything from mobility to land use issues to sustainability to transportation. There's a lot of components to this. So there's still a lot to work out, and as we kind of get the next steps, I'll discuss how we're going to get to those phases. Some new leads that we have in terms of funding to advance the study. But just kind of keep that in mind when we're looking at the graphics, that these are not the final designs. This is the kind of goal of the visioning study was to understand what is possible. This will be refined, it'll be changed in many different iterations, but this does kind of serve as a baseline where we're going to build from in terms of this project. So if you're not familiar with the Verdugo Wash, this is about a 9.5 mile long flood control channel. Coming all the way from La Crescenta all the way down to Los Angeles River and connecting at Confluence Park. This is part of the Los Angeles River tributary system. And one thing that's important here is that this connects through about 15 different neighborhoods. One of the main elements of the scope here is to make sure that the design of this project is contextually sensitive. It responds to those 15 different neighborhoods. So when you look at these renderings, they are not going to be of a very specific location. We are not at that kind of scale yet where we're designing kind of the nuance in response to a specific neighborhood. What you're going to see are kind of options. What can happen in a narrow segment of the wash? What can happen in a wider segment of the wash? How high it sits versus how low it sits depending on the surrounding uses. But there are a number of different neighborhoods, and this design will have to respond in such a manner. We're talking about suburban communities as well as a very urban environment. So there's going to be different kind of contexts of whether or not it's going to be a very passive environment. Is it going to be kind of a neighborhood connectivity? Pearls on a string, if you will, or is it going to be something a little more grand, that's more social, more engaging, intended to attract a lot of people? These are some examples of just what the wash looks like today. So some images from within the wash. Back in April of last year in 2021, our design consultant team came out. We did a tour within the wash, a bicycle ride going up and down the entire route, really trying to understand kind of the context, what the existing kind of infrastructure felt like, how it could potentially be modified, what the scale of that space was. If you stand on the street and you look down into the wash, it doesn't look quite as big as, say, the Los Angeles River, obviously. But when you get into the wash, you realize there's a lot of space to work with, especially as we move south down the route, moving away from Glendale Community College and kind of going west. There's a lot of room to work with. There's a lot of opportunities for access points, some that are already built into the infrastructure, some that could present new opportunities to be able to improve access, mobility, and opportunity. And that's what this project is really about at the end of the day. This was identified in the initial bicycle transportation plan as a potential active transportation spine, something that could connect to pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure, but also just looking at where we could create potential access points. Again, kind of a word of caution, you'll see dots on a map of where access points could be. They are not decided on the exact property, the exact location. These are just kind of generalized areas based on the surrounding context that may be appropriate for an access point. What you see on the far right of the diagram is just kind of some early ideas of how the area could be programmed. So much more passive as you get to northern segments. Playgrounds, things of that nature, more social spaces as you get into more urban environments, trying to create open space. We know there's a deficiency of open space within South Glendale. This is a unique opportunity for us to be able to create that, particularly in a very urban environment. This project looks at a number of different examples from around the country of how we can apply some things we learned from them. Obviously, the Los Angeles River proposes a really good opportunity for that. We can learn from some of their challenges, some of their successes. But there are other projects around the country that we had looked at and considered about how could we incorporate some of those features, some of those ideas and inspirations into the project. This graphic that you see here, this is the barn in West Sacramento. Our design consultant team actually created this project a couple years back, really intended to reflect that idea of a very social space. Fluid, iconic architecture that attracts people, creates plazas, maybe creates opportunities for commercial uses, but really about attracting people. This is something that would be very appropriate in more of the southern, kind of western segments of the Wash and more in urban environments. Looking at the Atlanta Beltline. In Atlanta, Georgia. What you're looking at here is a former surface parking lot for a very large Sears warehouse distribution center. The city of Atlanta had about about a $48 million stormwater issue here. They had to figure out how to pipe water away from that parking lot into the stormwater system. What they found is by designing this park for less than half of the cost of that stormwater system, the park itself was about $18 to $20 million, they could accomplish the same goals. And we look at this project because much like the Verdugo Wash, it covers a number of different neighborhoods, urban, suburban, it connects open spaces, it connects commercial nodes and education centers. The Atlanta Beltline is much larger in scale, but when we look at projects such as this, it shows opportunity of how we could modify the wash or areas adjacent to the wash. The city owns a number of different parcels to be more environmentally sensitive. This works to capture stormwater in significant rain events in the city of Atlanta. Everything here can actually be submerged in water. It is designed to be submerged in water. In fact, if you look kind of off to the right side of the image, you'll see a couple lines on the walls. Those represent the 100 and the 500-year flood events that occur. This has experienced 100-year events, and this entire park has been submerged. It's designed to do so. And some of the examples you'll see from some of the early concepts in the wash is also trying to achieve the same thing. Still performing its role as a flood control channel, but still being able to enhance the natural environment, if you will. And then looking at the 606 in Chicago, former rail line, this is really about active transportation. Again, running through a number of different kind of contexts and neighborhoods, but really focused on that active transportation element. This one has been especially popular with cyclists. So what we have today, this is just kind of a sample section from one of the wider segments of the Verdugo Wash. You can see this is a typical box channel. We do have certain segments where there's chamfered and angled walls, but this kind of represents a typical kind of section that you would see, and each one of those lines represents the different kind of flood events that could occur. 25, 50, 100-year events, things of that nature. Basically what we like to compare this to is a glass of water, and what we're trying to figure out is how much ice can we put inside this before we were to cause water to spill out. Again, this still has to function as a flood control channel. We cannot compromise that. We cannot sacrifice that for the sake of the other scope elements of the project. But there are a number of unique opportunities of how we can modify this. When we went into this project, one of the early concepts, and we're working with what we're calling a stakeholder advisory group, but it's really more of a technical working group, if you will, was how could we create potentially a soft river bottom? What we discovered is that's not really possible in this instance. The wash is not wide enough. It's not large enough to be able to kind of dig up that concrete at the base and turn that back into a soft river bottom. And there's a couple reasons behind that. First, there's not a consistent flow of water that comes down the Verdugo Wash. This was not a river to begin with. It was a creek. It was a canyon. Because of that, we would not be able to sustain life, essentially, at that base. The way you see certain segments of the Los Angeles River where there's vegetation, they've softened the bottom of that river and been able to create little islands, if you will, of trees and vegetation. We can't really do that here because of one, as I mentioned, it can't really sustain life on its own on a day-to-day basis. Secondly, still trying to not compromise the flood control aspects. If we slow down the flow of the water too much, then we start to see the rise of that water. We start to jeopardize safety of surrounding properties. So instead, what we've looked at is a couple of different alternatives, and one that we've really kind of gravitated towards is this idea of this raised platform. On a typical rain event, on a typical day, most water will be able to pass underneath what we're considering kind of this raised floor. We can get deep planting wells anywhere between 5 and 8 feet, depending on how we calibrate the height of the wash, where we can fit in substantial vegetation. This is very different than, say, some of the planting strips that you may see or planting boxes you may see in some of our downtown developments where they have small trees, small bushes. We're looking at being able to put substantial vegetation in here by creating these deep planting wells. You also notice, and actually not in this graphic yet, but we'll show in a moment, the height of this can be calibrated and changed based on the surrounding context. If we're running through a single family neighborhood, odds are we want to put that lower so that we're respecting the privacy of those neighbors nearby, so people aren't looking directly into their yards, directly into their living rooms. When we get into more commercial environments where we want to create more access points, more engagement with some of the surrounding uses, we would raise this higher. This would also depend on the rate of the flow of the water. This is all part of the analysis that's being conducted for this project. Just another example, as you can see, there's different kind of heights for these pathways. Being able to separate pedestrians and cyclists, especially in some of these more active areas, is going to be essential and key to protect the safety of the users. And even in this example, there are opportunities where we can create softened bottoms for smaller segments. You can see in the center of this, the ability to create vegetation in the center in kind of small patches, if you will. But it's not something that we can do through the entire wash. Another thing I'll note here is that you see this go almost to the walls of the existing structure. Depending on the context, it may not do that. It may stop short, again, from a safety perspective, from a privacy perspective, so people don't climb out of this into someone's backyard, accessing places maybe they don't need to be accessing. So again, the kind of width of this and the height of this will respond to the context as we dig deeper into the design and as we refine the design. What we like to do is look at this as kind of a kit of parts. You see the different heights, you see the different widths. There's going to be safety features that they'll be applied to different segments based on its surrounding context, depending on the neighborhood that it's in. This graphic here is intended to represent one of the more narrow segments. This is looking north of the debris basin, just north of Oakmont Country Club. You can see in this instance, we can't really separate modes quite as well. This area of the wash is very narrow. You can see we can still incorporate vegetation elements. Having certain design threads and features, you see this kind of wood material that's applied to the stairs and the ramping down. Having these kind of common design features that speak a similar language all the way through the route. Now, I will speak to the northern segment of this with a bit of a caveat, north of the Verdugo wash, or excuse me, north of the debris basin. There's a couple challenges here. First off is the width of this. The ability to put things within the wash and not compromise that flood control channel is something that would take us a lot more study and a lot more work. So while this is an initial concept, anything north of the debris basin, if that were to be possible, is much further down the road. Secondly, when we look at the surrounding context, it is primarily a suburban community. There are not a lot of commercial nodes. There's not a lot of commercial opportunities. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to push forward strongly with this northern segment because, quite frankly, the bang for the buck just isn't quite there. The number of users, the number of places to connect to. We've also held several meetings with the neighborhoods in the northern portion, and they're just not interested in this right now for a number of different reasons. There's certain things that they would like to see fleshed out a little bit more. They may find themselves not interested in this at all, but there's a number of challenges with this northern segment. So as we move forward with this, and we're anticipating going to City Council sometime in August or September with a kind of final version of this report, our recommendation to City Council will be to start this project moving forward at the debris basin just north of Oakmont Country Club. These other segments going north would just need a lot more work to figure out what's even possible. It would take many more conversations with the neighborhoods around there as well to see if we can come to a satisfactory result that meets the needs of those communities. This is as you're starting to move further south. As example, this could be near and around Oakmont Country Club. You can see the chamfer walls that are there. You can see the vegetation starts to beef up a little bit. We have a little more room to play with as the wash gets wider. You can see that certain amenities are starting to get incorporated, things like benches. So it's not just about the utilitarian path, but there's opportunities for moments of respite. Again, this is an unfinished design. We've had a number of conversations with Oakmont Country Club. There are certain safety features that need to be incorporated in, particularly since there's a golf course there. So we're looking at designing kind of an overarching canopy that would speak that kind of same wood language that you might see in some of these other elements that would protect both the users of the wash, but also the privacy of those using the country club. This would ensure that anyone using the wash wouldn't be hit with a golf ball, but also ensure that people would not be climbing out of the wash into the golf course. Again, one of those kind of areas of privacy that we're being mindful of. But as we move further down the wash, we start to see greater opportunities for more landscaping, more vegetation. You can see the separated paths now exist. You see this kind of tiered, almost amphitheater-like seating area. A number of responses we've seen from feedback from the public want us to incorporate elements of education, what this creek used to be, what this canyon used to be. recognizing the history of the Tongva tribe as part of this. As we move forward in this project, we would like to be able to include an art master plan that could help tell some of those stories, but just having some of those kind of educational elements to teach what was there, and even the sustainability and kind of environmental performance of a kind of reimagined wash. All of those kind of be incorporated into moments like these, where we have these kind of moments of respite. Again, as we continue to move further south and further west, opportunities to incorporate play spaces. You can kind of see in the distance in this image, and we'll show another graphic in just a moment, opportunities for plazas, for gathering spaces, for performance spaces. Again, trying to keep modes separate as we get into these more active areas. It is a downhill slope. While we were actually conducting the tour, I had an app on my phone that could measure speed of cycling, and I believe we reached about 31 miles an hour at one point. So making sure that we have safety features in there to slow down cyclists, but also just to be able to separate them so that we're not creating conflicts, we're not creating hazards for both pedestrians and cyclists. Just another example, you can see in this case we have separated those paths through materiality. You can see that bicycle pathway kind of dedicated with kind of that gray pathway that you see there, and then a different color for pedestrians. But again, really focused on enhancing that vegetation, creating a kind of green ribbon through the city, if you will, but also enhancing privacy to the surrounding uses, and also the sound. If you're near the wash, if you're in the wash today, a lot of echoing. You can hear a lot of activity from further down the wash. We believe that this would actually enhance that experience for those that live and work around the wash, because it's going to help kind of dampen down that sound a bit. And then there's the debris basin that I mentioned before. This was a shot we had taken while we were there. There's already some vegetation that's there, but there's a great opportunity here to really enhance the natural landscape and still create a space for people. Open space, pathways, things of that nature. So again, kind of an early concept, what you see is those kind of boardwalks, really kind of doing a light touch in this environment. You'd still be able to have water flow underneath this. Again, all of this would be designed in a fashion where it's intended to be submerged in significant rain events. We could still have opportunities for some open space, but one of the things that has really become an area of focus here is how do we enhance this from a natural environment perspective? Enhance vegetation, water retention, things of that nature. And again, that's really going back and looking at this project, the old Fourth Ward Park in Atlanta, and what it was able to accomplish. In this instance, when they built this, there was wildlife that started returning to this area, a very urban area that hadn't been seen in decades. Because they were able to create and kind of simulate this natural environment rather than the surface parking lot that was there before, rather than just piping the water to a storm drain somewhere else. And being that this was identified in the bicycle transportation plan as a potential significant spine, mobility is paramount to this project, one of the most important elements. What you're looking at is a series of heat maps. The darker the color, the shorter the commute for a cyclist. The lighter the color, really you're going from about 5 to 30 minutes. So those really deep, dark purples, it's about a 5-minute trip. That's how far you can get in 5 minutes. The lighter color is getting upwards of 30 minutes. So the image that you see on the left today is starting around downtown. That is how far you can get in 5 to 30 minutes with existing infrastructure. The center graphic represents the Verdugo Wash if it were to be opened up and used by pedestrians and cyclists using existing access points that are already there. So not adding new ones, just ones that are already there for general maintenance that could be enhanced. And you can see that range starts to become much, much greater. In fact, we're working on an updated graphic of this to show how deep into southern Glendale that could penetrate in terms of reducing those commute times for a cyclist. And then if you look at the image on the right, this is with additional access points. And this is important because this shows how easily we can get somebody to another location in a safe, protected manner. One of the top comments we heard from public input was the conflicts with motorists, the lack of protected bicycle lanes. Now we are preparing to launch into an update of our bicycle transportation plan where we are looking to enhance that, but this is a dedicated pathway. This would not be in conflict with any other mode of transportation. It will also connect to many significant centers, employment centers, education centers, open space as well. If I use this graphic as a map, kind of looking from Oakmont Country Club down south, you have Glendale Community College, you have the Glendale Avenue Corridor, which is also a major employment center here. You have the heart of downtown. You have West Glendale and the Glen Oaks Corridor. We have BRT that's going to be coming in the coming years as well that allows us to be able to connect this to transit opportunities. The ability to come from North Hollywood and connect here and hop on the Wash. There are access points that are in very close proximity to where some of those stops will be for the BRT. But it's also about regional connectivity. With the integration to that BRT, you can now connect to Burbank, as mentioned, out to North Hollywood. This also connects to the Los Angeles River, being able to create those access and opportunities moving south of the city. So it starts to open up these places of significant employment, education, civic resources, recreational resources that are in a protected, safe environment with a much more significant kind of reduced commute time if you're using a bicycle. For this project, understanding that it touches, again, 15 different neighborhoods. There's a lot of different interests in areas of concern and opportunity with this project. Public engagement has been an ongoing part of this project. With the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously we had to start a lot of this virtually. We have a project website, verdugowash.com, where we have a series of surveys that we put out. The first survey was asking residents what they thought just from the perspective of, would you like to see a reimagined Wash? If so, what are some of those priorities? Subsequent surveys would look at precedent examples, asking people, where would you like to see, or would you like to see any of these examples applied to your segment, to your neighborhood? And then a more recent survey, which looks at these designs that we've shown here today, plus a few other additional concepts, and asking for that kind of input and feedback. We also held a February 19th multi-site event at Verdugo Park, Fremont Park, and downtown location as well simultaneously, bringing out some of these graphics, bringing out opportunities for people to be able to give their input on how they would like to see this project develop. We've hosted a number of meetings with various neighborhoods up and down the Wash. We continue to emphasize if any neighborhood is interested to learn more about this project and provide input, we are more than happy to come out and have those conversations. That's where we were able to really kind of dig in and understand what some of the concerns were regarding things like safety, things like fire hazard. We have an internal stakeholder working group that is comprised of Public Works, Parks and Community Services, Police and Fire, that have helped us formulate ideas to address that. On our last city council presentation, in terms of safety, anything from call boxes, foot patrols, much of the Wash is visible from surrounding streets, so police didn't have a concern about the ability to patrol because they can see down into that Wash. In terms of fire hazard, using fire-resistant planting, following our codes, our guidelines to be able to do that and ensure that we're not creating additional danger. As mentioned, we have a stakeholder working group. We refer to it as a stakeholder working group, but I would like to emphasize it as much more like a technical working group, if you will. The people that participate in this have a expertise, whether that's in transportation and mobility, whether that's in sustainability, or even lessons learned from those at the Los Angeles River. We had invited them to participate as well so that we could learn from them where they may have found success, where they may have found challenges, and incorporate that into this process. We will be meeting with them one more time as we kind of wrap up this final document to get their input. One of the reasons why we are here this evening and why we're going to the other boards and commissions is to get that input, to include that in that final report as we make our recommendation to City Council on how to move forward. In terms of that survey, these are results from the initial survey that we had released. We were asking residents what are the attributes of a reimagined Wash would be important to them. And you can see the top ranking here were public safety, natural habitat restoration, the creation of new open space, and pedestrian and cyclist routes, really hitting at the core principles of the project and what it is trying to achieve. Enhance mobility, create opportunities for open space, and create opportunities to enhance the natural environment, mitigate things like the urban heat island effect. Other things didn't rank quite as high: connections to transit, opportunities for animals or pets, things of that nature. But we also asked residents, and we had about, I believe it was somewhere between 900 and 1,000 responses to this question: do you support a reimagined Wash? That score came out to be 4 out of 5 when we asked on kind of a 5-point scale. So there is very strong support, but I will issue the caveat that there are also some hesitations, some concerns. People want to make sure that this is not going to cause issues with crime, issues with homelessness, making sure that people who are using the pathway are safe. And again, that's why we look at some of these surrounding projects. Other examples, and be able to pull from them to understand how they were able to police it better, to make it safer, to make its environmental elements perform better than maybe originally anticipated. And that's why some of those precedents that you see there and some that are in our initial design report kind of span all across the country, different scales, different opportunities, and how we could factor that into the project. In terms of next steps, again, we're looking to complete this visioning phase by the end of summer 2022, early fall 2022. We need to identify sources to conduct the kind of additional feasibility study. Again, those graphics are very early on. While we've done a hydrology analysis, we need to do more. We need to understand more. So that really kind of builds into that feasibility and master planning element. And then there's the environmental review component of this project. We were just awarded $1 million in the state budget to move forward to the next stage. We have a couple grant applications out there and a number of other opportunities that can help advance that visioning, that feasibility, and the environmental, but even potentially some limited implementation of this project on an early kind of implementation scale. As I had mentioned, we are also updating our bicycle transportation plan. We're getting ready to launch into that. Again, this was identified as a primary spine in that. Making sure that our bicycle transportation plan is creating safe, connected routes to the Verdugo Wash will be important. Going back and looking at, are sharrows enough, is one of those top questions. It's a question that's been posed by the community, questions that have been posed by the city council. Are there ways that we can enhance that? That bicycle transportation plan was a good start. There's an opportunity here for us to make that better, connect to projects such as this and our recently adopted citywide pedestrian plan. And as I had mentioned, the adoption and now implementation as we work towards that with the pedestrian plan. There's also integration with the Metro BRT. As mentioned before, that is anticipated to come down Glen Oaks. That is the preferred alternative right now. And we had conducted the West Glendale Sustainable Transportation and Land Use Study. That was really looking at knowing that corridor is going to be a multimodal transit corridor, recognizing that the existing bicycle lane is an unprotected facility on a relatively fast street. How can we make that better? So that plan had looked at flipping that bicycle lane with the parked cars to create a safe, protected lane, but also looking at some of the surrounding adjacent streets that would connect to the Verdugo Wash and ensure that what we're doing between the wash, our bicycle transportation plan, and our pedestrian plan are actually creating a network rather than just kind of discrete moments that may get you from one place to another place that's close by, but how are we getting people from where they live to where they work, where they shop, where they entertain themselves, where they educate themselves. So there's ongoing kind of integration and coordination with those projects that we'll need to continue to see through as part of this. And that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Wow, that's a lot of information and a lot of work obviously has gone into that. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments?
Sure, I can go if nobody else wants to go first.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Just want to say thank you to Bradley once again. This is one of those visionary projects that I think many people in the community have been long awaiting for and hoping for many years. For me specifically, it is a lot about transportation and getting people from the destinations or to the destinations that they'd like to get to, while also addressing the park poor situation that we have in South Glendale. This project would accomplish both of those objectives to create better connectivity for people that are trying to get through our communities, while also creating open spaces and parks for people to recreate and just be able to enjoy the outdoors. So very grateful that this is moving forward. I'm so glad that the city is dedicating resources to realize this project. And now in addition to the state and our electeds at the state level for providing additional funding to further study this project. So just want to say thank you, and I'm very looking forward to this project. I know it's years in the making, but nevertheless happy that we've started that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Chair, we do have a caller on the line.
Yes, let's take the call, please.
Catherine Yurka. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, everyone. Good evening again.
You have 3 minutes.
Oh, I won't take that long. I was just continuing to watch the meeting, and I just wanted to call to say how much I love this. I'm so excited to see what is being proposed and thought in terms of reimagining the wash. I'm sorry that it won't go as far north as it potentially could, but I certainly understand. I've heard a lot of objections from residents adjacent, so I think it makes sense to start this way. The only thought that I wanted to contribute is just given the severe shortage of green space in South Glendale, whether it might not make sense to do the potential early implementation in South Glendale rather than the debris basin. Although I really liked the kind of general idea of what was being proposed, it might make more sense to start where the need is desperate. Anyway, thanks for your work on this. It just looks great. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. We don't have any other callers about this issue right now.
Okay, we had Kate Unger earlier. Is she hung up then?
She is for item 7A.
Oh, 7A. Okay, sorry. Almost called on her early again. Okay. Yeah, for me, living in South Glendale, where the shortest deficit of park space is, I'm, can't help but be a little bummed that it doesn't go south of the 134, because it looks like such a delightful area. But hopefully, people from South Glendale will make their way over to this and have a chance to enjoy it. But as Ms. Yurka was saying, the idea of starting in South Glendale, where they're the most park-starved, or that southern portion of that, would be a great idea. But.
And if I could offer a clarifying comment to that, when I say start at the basin, what I mean is just, in general, that's where the scope of the project would start. It doesn't necessarily mean that that would be the first phase of implementation. Part of the documentation that we'll take to council later this year will be a phasing plan and a recommendation on where to start. Depending on where those funding sources come from, that could help inform and influence some of that. But one of the goals is to try to, again, maximum impact, maximum bang for our buck, putting that in more urban areas and really kind of starting there.
Great. Yeah, and in the northern areas where you got more resistance, it makes sense since they have lots more park space up there. And so for them, it's probably not quite as enticing for them to have that additional park space as it would be for folks further south. So great. Are any last minute comments before we go on to the next agenda item? No? Going once? No, twice?
I had a quick question, sorry.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that I'm calling in. It's hard to see if there are other people in the queue that want to speak. Bradley, I did have one quick question. I know that, for folks who haven't seen the Verdugo Wash physically, but it's a very large, wide space, and we're talking about many linear miles of parkway. Has there been consideration for integrating any kind of solar energy as part of this project? I know the city is constantly pursuing opportunities to install more solar here at the local level, and we're in the midst of discussing the future energy needs of our city. Is the Verdugo Wash an option to install some kind of solar array, cantilevered option as part of a shade element? It just seems like we have the scale with this project where we could, in some locations, get some megawatts of energy out of it. And I wonder if that has been considered or if that's something that we could pursue as an option in partnership with Glendale Water and Power.
It is definitely something that we can consider. We haven't quite dug that deep yet, just because, again, we're kind of very early on, but that is one of the reasons why we want to come to these boards, commissions, get this kind of feedback, because that is something that when we go into those next phases, we can add that in to make sure that we're, excuse me, investigating that and seeing if there are opportunities to do so.
Yeah, I'd like to encourage that exploration as much as possible. I know this is a monumental project that will cost a lot of money. And so if we're not able to realize, the concept drawings that we're seeing, which are very beautiful, but I know are very elaborate and would cost a lot of money, if we're not able to do that in a continuous way throughout the entire project area, that at least we can provide some utility to, pun intended, with solar arrays and having power generated as part of this project would be great.
Well, thank you, Alec. That might be nice to have some like teaching opportunities like that, engaging students on solar energy or other things. I went to the Montreal Botanical Garden a number of years ago, just as their this new section was opening that was specifically for the visually impaired, and they had a sort of a handrail that had braille in it, and there were these stations that you could stop and open like a box, and it was a tactile experience, so you could feel what different sorts of leaves look like and things like that, and so just ways of, I didn't see a lot of accessible like ramps and I know it's a rendering, but it's a lot of stairs and things, but just ways that we're including everybody would be great. And as far as the concrete goes, I saw some earlier renderings of it that seemed just very concrete, and so I'm glad to see a lot more planting and use of different materials and changes of elevation and so on. So it's really coming along well. And I was wondering, as far as the engagement, you said you have the working group, and so that's all like design professionals, just member of the community at large, or?
I wouldn't say design professionals, various technical kind of expertise. We do have a representative from the Homeowners Coordinating Council and the Chamber of Commerce, so that we do have that business and resident perspective. What I would say is, being that this is kind of in those early stages, we're trying to find what is possible. As we move in the next phases, we would start to set up additional organizations, additional groups to be able to work out some of those details. So those who own property directly along the wash, things of that nature, so that we can really dig into the nuance and the detail of safety elements, access. Parking has been a concern and question that people have brought up, if people treat it as a trailhead. So as we move forward and we have a much more elaborate engagement plan, we'll have many different kind of stakeholder groups, if you will, that we will work with.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I do belong to Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council, and there have been people coming to those meetings asking us questions, and we only have one homeowner represented on there, so I'm sure they would appreciate the outreach in the areas that particularly where the wash will end up.
And we would be more than happy to give a presentation as well to the Coordinating Council if that's desired.
Yeah, yes, I'm sure we can make that happen. Thank you. Can we go on to our next agenda item?
Next agenda item is 7 sustainability office updates. We have 7A, building electrification reach code project.
Good evening, Chairperson Warner and Sustainability Commissioners. As you know, a couple of months ago now, we came to the Sustainability Commission with a report recommending that City Council hire a consultant to assist city staff in developing reach codes, building electrification reach codes, solar PV reach codes, and EV charging reach codes. Happy to say that Council approved that, and that we do have a consultant on board now who is helping us with this project. So I just want to provide a little bit of, I thought the Commission might find it interesting to look at the timeline of the Reach Code project and the kind of programs that are going to be happening over the next couple of months as we work diligently to try and get this done on time. So, that's hard to read. I do apologize about that. So I'll start. So we hired Rincon consultants to help us with this project. And the first task of Rincon was to meet with staff, understand the scope of work, and to have discussion with our internal team on this. From that initial discussion, Rincon went away and they looked at best practices across different jurisdictions, up and down the state, and obviously taking into account ideas of staff, and they produced what they was a memorandum. So looking at different options that the city may wish to pursue in the development of a REACH code. So that was presented to staff in July. During that process, when Rincon was developing that memorandum, we had an external group who wanted to put their point of views forwards and some elements that they would like to see incorporated into REACH code. So we asked them to provide us a letter, and that letter was sent to the consultants so they could look at some of those issues that group wanted to address. And a number of the issues that group had highlighted have been addressed in this memorandum. So the memorandum was presented to staff in July. Staff are now reviewing the memorandum, primarily staff from community development, from building engineering, and from Glendale Water and Power. Staff have until July 21st to provide all comments, and then we're going to provide that comment back to the consultants so they can include those comments as they begin to then tease out these different options and begin to draft an ordinance for discussion. During the July period right now, the consultant is putting together the outreach engagement program and paperwork and information so we can go out into the community and have this discussion in the community about what this REACH code would look like. And we're obviously going to reach out to the architects, the building owners, the HVAC technicians, all people that are involved in building new development within the city of Glendale. Also, the consultants are having a specific meeting with Glendale Water and Power that is set up for the next week or so to specifically address and understand the concerns of Glendale Water and Power in terms of, what potential impact this will have on the grid or not going forward. So we very much want to involve GWP in these discussions. Once we've gone through that process, as I said, we're going to do these virtual attendance and presentation workshops with the public. That should take us through August. And then by the end of August, we hope to have the draft memo or ordinance fairly complete. So early September or in September timeframe, we will be coming to the Commission with that draft ordinance for the Commission's input and guidance and recommendations. Those will be taken into account, and then hopefully in October timeline, we will be going to City Council and asking City Council for their input and their guidance and their recommendations. The timing of this is fairly tight, and we're also trying to ensure that the timing of this project fits in with the city's general project of updating the building codes in terms of the Cal Green codes that has to be done every 3 years. So that process is happening right now. And then we hope to be in a position to send the ordinance to the California Energy Commission for their review and approval in November. And so that will take approximately, we think, 30 days for them to get back to us and maybe address any comments. But another reason we hired a consultant is they have gone through the California Energy Commission approval process, so they will help the city guide us through that process. And then all being well, we'll have an ordinance ready to go January 1st, 2023. So as a timeline, obviously, as we're going through this project and going through this process, issues and everything maybe kick up, which we don't know about right now, that may delay or may not delay. the process, but we aim to try to keep to this as much as possible. So within the memorandum, as mentioned, we're looking at building electrification. So this is regarding new construction, building electrification, looking at implementing PV infrastructure on non-residential and multifamily buildings, look at how expanding the EV charging infrastructure within the city. And then, as mentioned, the external group had some ideas, and they wanted us to look at existing buildings. That was not in the original scope of work that we had contract with the consultant, but we asked them to look at that, and they have done so, and they have put some information regarding existing building requirements within the memorandum. So that's why we're a little bit behind, but we're about a week behind. That's primarily because the consultant did that additional work for us. So that's an update on where we are with the building electrification reach code project. And I believe we have a call.
Yes, let's take the caller.
We have one caller, Kate Unger. Hello, Kate, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to hearing this update. Really appreciate it from David. Fantastic. He's been making reference to an external group, and that's my working group. We've been advocating for reach codes primarily focused on electrification. And I've been advocating for reach codes in Glendale since 2020, so very invested in that process. Mostly wanted to take a moment to express thanks to David Jones for this update and for all of his work and for past updates to our group. I do want to note one major concern is the schedule. As he indicated, it's a tight that timeline. It really needs to be passed by council in September to have enough buffer to ensure the CEC approval process happens before the end of the year holidays, so that the reach effect can take effect January 1st. Otherwise, we would end up with the city needing to go through 2 separate code updates, which makes no sense. So I absolutely need to move quickly. There's no wiggle room, no room for delays. Already things have got pushed a little bit. David mentioned that our group did express interest in having the reach code apply. It's not just to existing buildings. To be very clear, it's only for substantial improvements like a remodel. So this is not a code that would affect people in their homes today or in their businesses today. It's really for new construction or substantial remodels. In any event, just going back, David is extremely busy. We have really appreciated every time that he connects with us and gives us an opportunity to get an update and share our input. These have been good, positive communications. We're focused on a shared goal for a strong, effective reach code. We really appreciate his time, and we know that the city values public engagement, so it's great that the city supports David in continuing to connect with us, and we are really looking forward to being engaged in this process and seeing it through to the end. And thank you all very much.
Thank you. So, do any of the commissioners have any comments on this item?
I'm just curious about the commenter's concern about timing, and does staff have a reaction to that, or can we get comfort in knowing that this will be done in time?
Commissioner Bartrasuf, thank you for that question. As indicated, there's a tight timeline. Reason we hired a consultant was to help us achieve that timeline. So our intention is to work to that timeline as much as possible. So as Kate said, there's no point in having to go through this process twice. So yeah, our aim is to Jan 1, 2023, be able to go.
So my question is, if we're looking to have all the new construction and major remodels go all electric, is the city getting all of its electricity from clean sources at this time?
So this building, this REACH code is just focused on building electrification. So it's the consumption of energy at the building to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases from gas and other appliances that are used within the building. As you know, Glendale Water and Power has its own program looking at increasing the amount of renewables into our sourcing electricity, but this project is just focused right now on looking at building electrification as a way to help decarbonize our city.
Right, so, yeah, it would be a more attractive reach code if all of our electricity was coming from clean sources. So I think the benefit would be greater than it would be right now. So looking forward to that becoming a reality one day. Okay, does anyone else have comments or questions? Okay, and also as far as the code updates, we update the code all the time as different things happen, so hopefully they can figure that out if the schedule does slip. And of course, that's assuming that City Council moves forward with that and that GWP says it would work. There's a lot of ifs along the road, or maybes, but yeah, good luck with that, and we appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Okay, were there any other callers?
There are no other callers at this moment.
Okay, next item.
Next item is 7B, Climate Action and Adaptation Plan.
Commissioner Werner and Sustainability Commissioners, happy to say that we issued the RFP. I'm happy to also report that we had 9 responses to the RFP, which we thought was a good amount of responses considering the amount of work that is we asked the consultants to do in the RFP. On July 14th, our internal selection committee will be reviewing the request for proposals. Soon after that, we'll be interviewing the short list of consultants that we think will be able to accomplish this project. And then shortly after that, we'll move to select a consultant to help us with this project. But yeah, as mentioned, 9 responses, and so far, starting reading the responses, all very good responses to the amount of work that we've asked the consultants to do on this project for us.
Great, thank you for the update. Does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, please.
Thanks, David, for the update. I believe in past meetings when we got updates about the Climate Action Plan RFP, that there was an interest or a comment made about ensuring that some level of stakeholders are involved in helping select the consultant, whether that was somebody on the Sustainability Commission or somebody from a representative from the Glendale Environmental Coalition. Is there an opportunity for a member of the community to be involved in that selection process?
To date, the selection committee is composed of internal and not any external bodies at this point. That is something I have to look at, and I'll be able to get back to the commission on that.
Okay, yeah, given I know you mentioned July 14 as your next milestone, I know is around the corner. So I guess if you can consult with whoever it is you need to consult with on staff, that be considered, I would appreciate that. And then, so what happens after the 14th? I know that's a point in which you'll.
So on the 14th, we'll have a short list of what we think are the best consultants for the project. We'll then interview the consultants, speak to them about their applications, and then after that, we'll select the consultant, and then we'll have to enter into the process of getting, we'd have to actually, then once we've identified the consultant that we want to go with, and we'll then go to City Council, and then after that, enter the contract process to get the contract signed. Is the basic process.
Okay, and what's that timeline look like for you, just as a rough timeline?
So our timeline is to have the consultant selected by end of July, hopefully go to City Council in August, and then to have the contract executed as soon as after that's possible.
Okay, great. So are we hoping that they'll be on board and working before the end of the year?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's all that I had.
Great, thank you. Do any other commissioners have questions? Okay, thank you very much for the report. Next agenda item.
Next agenda item is 8, adjournment. We just need a motion and second.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
The meeting is adjourned at 7:34. Thank you.